derision throughout the election campaign. The cabinet met. They decided to implement, among one of the first decisions taken today by the new cabinet, was the Ayushman Bharat scheme to be kick-started in the state of Delhi. Remember, when Kejriwal was Chief Minister and then subsequently when Atishi was Chief Minister, the Aam Aadmi Party refused to implement Ayushman Bharat in the national capital. They had their own scheme, their own version of medical care. But playing to the galleries is one thing. It's day one, it's less than 24 hours, yes, but there is a lot of hard work to do. Delhi's water, its air, its roads will all need a major cleanup, and that's going to be an onerous task. The question is, are Rekha Gupta and her new team, which has Parvesh Verma, Manjinder Sirsa and others, 6 ministers plus the Chief Minister, are they ready for this task in front of them, which is very much cut out?
मिशन विकसित दिल्ली का है, उसको पूरा करने के लिए लगातार काम किया जाएगा, एक भी दिन उसमें से व्यर्थ नहीं होगा और एक एक कमिटमेंट जो हमारी दिल्ली से है उसे पूरा करेंगे.
So Delhi's newly sworn in Chief Minister Rekha Gupta drove right into business. She set the stage for what many are calling a Vikas Rekha challenge, a pledge to bring rapid and inclusive development to the national capital. She's already outlined a bold agenda to tackle some of the most pressing issues faced by Delhiites. Here are the top 5 priorities for the new government here in Delhi. Number 1, like I said, is to roll out the Ayushman Bharat scheme in Delhi, ensuring that more and more citizens of the national capital benefit from affordable healthcare. This was on the agenda in the first cabinet meeting as well, and that is likely going to be the first thing that the government of Delhi will pass. Number 2, and this is going to be not an easy task, cleaning up of the Yamuna River, the river that flows through the heart of the national capital. It's going to be a focal point of the new Chief Minister's efforts. Work has already begun. The optics were on point. Today, the new Chief Minister, Ms. Gupta, along with her entire cabinet, reached the Yamuna Ghats. They offered the evening aarti there. But that's not quite the same thing as cleaning up the entire river, because it involves getting multiple state governments on board as well, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, etc. Number 3, with the monsoon season approaching, the desilting of roads as well as sewers to try and prevent waterlogging and flooding. That's a recurring issue. We remember the images from last monsoon season where people at a coaching center in the heart of Delhi died because of water entering their campus. This is going to be a big test of the new government, the upcoming monsoon season, in about 3 to 6 months. A citywide sanitation drive to address waste management problems. Remember, for years now, we've seen mounds of garbage, not just the Ghazipur landfill, which is perhaps the biggest in the entire country, maybe even all of Asia, but also from neighborhood to neighborhood, mounds of garbage, which had become almost like an ubiquitous sight, because oftentimes it was that these MCD workers were not being paid on time. Oftentimes it was clashes between RWAs and these MCD workers, and sometimes it was simply just clashes between the LG's office and the previous Aam Aadmi Party government. So again, an onerous task, a task that is cut out for the new government under Ms. Rekha Gupta. In response to Delhi's infrastructure woes, and this is something that Delhi used to be proud of, 10 years ago or 15 years ago when Sheila Dikshit was Chief Minister, Delhi used to have world-class infrastructure. The Chief Minister, the new Chief Minister, will now have to start focusing almost immediately, right from day one, on repairing and maintaining Delhi's roads, which have long been a concern for commuters.
We have a very declared priorities. हमारी priorities declared हैं, हमारी गारंटियों के रूप में हम उसको पूरा करके दिखाएंगे. Yamuna is a priority. Yamuna should have been cleared. Yamuna should have been.
All right, I want to go across to our political face-off right at the top of the show. Tuin Sinha, national spokesperson of the BJP, joining us. Dr. Sunny Ahluwalia, spokesperson of the Aam Aadmi Party. Tuin, so optics go a long way in politics, but it's still early days. It's just day one. The entire cabinet of the new Chief Minister, Ms. Rekha Gupta, coming to the Yamuna Ghats, performing the evening aarti. That is one thing, but to clean up the Yamuna, it's going to take anywhere between 35,000 to 50,000 crores. This is a promise you have made to the people of Delhi, and she's going to be judged on that. Her cabinet, her government is going to be judged on that.
Well, good evening, Zakka. Good evening, everybody. You know, the beginning the tenure with an Aarti at Yamuna, there is more to it than symbolism. It shows the confidence of the new state government. It shows the commitment to Yamuna. Now, we had Arvind Kejriwal, who had no idea where 7,000 crores went, in the name of cleaning of Yamuna, but whether it requires 35,000 crores, whether it requires 50,000 crores, the very fact that we have begun with a Yamuna Aarti is a reiteration of our commitment to cleaning Yamuna. That's point number one. Now, you have very correctly listed out the key priorities. Health. Ayushman Bharat, the implementation is very high on our agenda. That should take place in the next couple of months. Education. That's very important. But more importantly, the infrastructure and the complete, sanitation issues. People in Delhi are struggling to, live a decent life because of complete collapse of infrastructure. In the last 1 year, there had been 16 waterlogging deaths, 26 electrocution deaths, plus, of course, throughout the winter season, particularly late October, November, December, the city becomes unlivable because of the air. All of these will be addressed in the first year itself. And I think, the government has started with a lot of confidence, with a lot of commitment, and the commitment will go ahead and yield results very soon.
Dr. Ahluwalia, that was the fundamental reason why Arvind Kejriwal and the Aam Aadmi Party lost. I mean, people say corruption and all of those issues, politics, the constant loggerhead between state and centre, the LG's office, etc. But fundamentally, there was a governance deficit, whether it was roads, which used to be the pride of Delhi at one point of time, whether it was the drains and the sewers, people dying because of waterlogging in Delhi is unheard of. We saw that last year. The Yamuna, which should have been the pride of the national capital, it's dirty, filthy, and again, there was just politics between centre and state. There was a basic governance deficit which Delhiites are yearning for, and Ms. Rekha Gupta and her team seem to have acknowledged that and addressed that. Whether or not they will deliver, they will be judged, but at least they are saying that, look, we will try and live up to the promises and the expectations of the people of Delhi.
First of all, congratulations to the Rekha Gupta, our DU pass out and DU president as well. Every Delhi, is looking forward that how they are going to complete their manifesto promises. And people are also hoping that they will continue with the Aam Aadmi Party social welfare schemes given by Shri Arvind Kejriwal ji. And we look forward for this because they have even promised this beforehand that we will continue with the electricity, we will continue with the water, we will continue with the free bus services, we will continue and we will give 2,500 rupees from which March from the International Women's Day. And for the first day, we were looking forward that this will be passed in the first cabinet, but nobody has talked about that, and we are hoping that they will maybe they will move towards that side very soon. And it is very well done. We can say that they can start it in a very good way by starting doing an Aarti in Yamuna, and we are looking forward that the neighbouring states as well, which are being governed by the Bharatiya Janata Party, especially the neighbouring state of Uttar Pradesh, especially the neighbouring state of Haryana, in which they have the chief minister, that they will now stop polluting the rivers of Delhi and even of these neighbouring states as well. We are looking forward for that also.
So
Number two, the
isn't
most
that a
important thing, as they were saying,
fundamental sort of break? The fact that now you have the central government, you have the LG's office, and you have the state government, there has to be talmail between the three of them. There can't be politics because they are, all three belong to the same party, all three belong to the same dispensation. So, Tuhin, ultimately, but this whole every week, every day clash that was happening between Mr. Kejriwal and Mr. Saxena at the LG's office, at least that impediment should be out of the way. So now, people of Delhi know you've got a double engine or triple engine or call it what you want. These people now have to deliver. If they don't deliver, they will have to be held to account.
I just want to put one thing in this.
Tuhin, and then I'll come back to you, Dr. Alwal. I'll come back to you.
Delhi. So Mr. Kejriwal is temperamentally unfit. Mr. Kejriwal is temperamentally unfit to be in politics because he's an excuse monger. If 3 years ago, when they formed a government in Punjab, we had imagined, we had hoped that they would at least be able to combat the farm fires the stubble burning in Punjab, but that only increased, resulting in complete choking of Delhi. So Kejriwal was an excuse monger. He did not intend to do anything, and that is the reason he had no idea. 6 months ago, when multiple newspapers had reported that 7,000 crores had been spent by AAP government in the cleaning of Yamuna, he didn't say anything. Suddenly, before the elections, he said, I have no idea about the money. So I think, there is no comparison. This is a very well-intended government. And moreover, in the last 10 years, people have witnessed the complete collapse of every possible amenity in Delhi. And the Rekha ji has also been a councillor, a municipal councillor. So she has worked her way up. She is aware of the issues at the ground level. She is aware of the issues in the slums. And that would be an additional advantage in her discharge of responsibility.
So let me give Dr. Ahluwalia the final word. You can say, okay, the central government was putting impediments in his way, the LG's office was putting impediments in his way. But the promise to clean up Delhi's air was made by Mr. Kejriwal and the Aam Aadmi Party, repeatedly saying, please give us, power in Punjab. We will ensure that the farm fires will be put out. You came to power in 2022 and we've had horrible years, 23, 24, horrible years as far as air pollution is concerned.
I just want to put one thing in. According to the spokesperson of Bharatiya Janata Party, what is a federal democracy for the states? What is a federal democracy? In case you say double engine sarkar or triple engine sarkar, that means whichever government comes in the center, every state should have no elections. Rather, they should give the chief minister directly to the person who have the center government, or they should give the government to the who have in the neighboring states. My simple claim and my simple things are that Punjab government has decreased 80% of the farm fires wherever the Bharatiya Janata Party ruled Haryana government and the neighboring state, there the fire was more. You can check the data of 2024, sir. We have created a war room specially for this in Punjab. But what happened to the Haryana? Why the only pollution is coming from the Punjab, which is 180 kilometers from the national capital, and why it is not coming from which is just 10 kilometers away?
So that data has to be cleared out.
Federal system.
We've heard this back and forth.
Federal democracy should not be challenged.
Okay.
Federal democracy should not be challenged. The states can have different government, but they can work with the umbrella over the central government. But that doesn't mean that they have to be a double engine sarkar, the same government in the lower and the same government in the center.
No,
then
I take that point, but at least Delhiites,
and convert into the dictatorship.
With the verdict that has been returned, now can say that there's one party that they can hold to account. One party is responsible if their quality of life does not improve, whether it is roads or sanitation or cleaning up the Yamuna. At least this excuse that, different party in center, different party in state, that excuse no longer is valid. Thank you very much to Insina and Dr. Ahluwalia for joining us. I want to move on to the next big story, and this is a very, very important one. This is really snowballing into a big controversy. US President Donald Trump now has raised sharp questions about this $21 million US aid contribution that came into India for ostensibly voter turnout. Now, citing a disclosure by the Elon Musk-led Dodge, which a few days back had made that disclosure initially, Trump expressed outrage, questioning why the United States was funding India and its electoral process. To use the exact words that Mr. Trump used, India has a lot more money. So why are we funding them $21 million? Why are we giving them $21 million? So he followed that up with what he said was a big breakthrough. He said it seemed to him that there was an attempt to try and get someone else elected, someone other than Mr. Modi elected in India. These are Mr. Trump's words. Now, this comes a day after Elon Musk and the entity that he leads, Dodge, cancelled this $21 million funding that was intended for voter turnout in India. Predictably, this has sparked a huge furor here in India. Government sources have indicated that there are some social media accounts, some websites which have gotten deactivated in the last few days ever since these disclosures came to light, and the government will be probing as to why this has happened. Let's first listen in to Donald Trump and what he said, and then we'll break down where this funding has come, who has benefited from this funding, and whether or not there is a case to be made, politically speaking, as the BJP seems to be making, that there was foreign interference.
What do we need to spend $21 million for voter turnout in India? Well, $21 million, I guess they were trying to get somebody else elected. Well, we ought to tell the Indian government this is a total breakthrough.
So as the BJP is trying to put the Congress on the mat, a top BJP source has put forth some statistics to try and drive home the point about US aid and its connection to election interference. Now, top BJP sources claim that US aid funding has been linked to influencing political outcomes, particularly when it is election year. So under the UPA between 2004 and 2013, the Indian government received as much as $204 million, while NGOs received more than 2,000 million. That's the equivalent of a little over $2 billion. In the following 10 years, under NDA, under Mr. Modi's government, 2014 to 2024, the government funding from USAID dropped quite drastically. It came down from 200 million to just about $1.5 million. This was still 2015, after which the funding was stopped altogether. NGO funding, on the other hand, increased from 2,400 odd million to 2,579 million. That's about 2.5 billion. Now, the data that's been put forth by the BJP also shows that USAID allocation under a sector that is categorized as democracy, human rights, and governance. The funding between 2001 and 2004 was over $1 million annually. This funding initially reduced and then completely stopped between 2015 and 2019. However, since 2020, this funding has slowly been picking up and it saw an exponential growth in 2022. BJP sources attribute that increase to the narrative that was being spun around democracy being in danger and a democratic backslide in India. In fact, they are even pointing to Rahul Gandhi's Bharat Jodo Yatra and asking if the timing of the yatra in 22-23 was a mere coincidence. So US President Donald Trump has flagged concerns over the Biden administration's decision to allocate as much as $21 million to India for voter turnout. This time, Mr. Trump has gone one step ahead and said this may have even been an attempt to influence the election outcome. Mr. Trump has suggested that the money was potentially used to influence the elections in India, adding that the US should address this with the Indian government. He even went on to call this a total breakthrough. Let's try and get some perspective on this. I'm now joined by Mr. Kanchan Gupta, a senior advisor to the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, Government of India. Thank you very much, Mr. Gupta, for speaking with us. So this entire controversy started off with the revelations put out by Mr. Elon Musk and his Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency, that $21 million was given to India for increasing voter turnout. Can you tell our viewers whether the Government of India is investigating, has any information on who the recipients of this $20 million was here in India?
Well, any investigation that may be happening or any scrutiny that may be happening would not be in the public domain for obvious reasons. But what is of extreme concern is that the whole affair looks very iffy. There is greater voter turnout in India statistically than there is in America. So to try and promote democracy by increasing voter turnout, which was the cover that was used, is totally fallacious, and it doesn't hold up to scrutiny. What is of even greater concern is where exactly would this money have gone, to which entities and to which individuals. We have a fair idea who were the individuals who were being promoted before the 2024 general election. The US Embassy was advertising quote-unquote workshops with some of these individuals to promote media understanding, media abilities, media skills. Now, these individuals, all of them are openly hostile to the government of India. They are openly hostile to the Modi government, and yet they were picked up for this purpose. The other thing which we know is that, and now that President Trump himself has said it, that the money was aimed at regime change, not only influencing the election or not only trying to get voters to come out, which was just a cover. It was aimed at changing the government which was in power, that is the Modi government. So the whole idea was to get this government out and get a new government in or another government in, and that is what is called a regime change.
But
and
Mis-
that is the worst form of electoral interference, electoral intervention that can be done by any foreign entity, foreign agency, or foreign government.
But
So
Mr. Gupta,
the US
you know,
State Department, which is now seized of the matter,
Yeah.
DOGE is looking into it. President Donald Trump has twice made a public mention of it. So it is now for them to clarify.
So, Mr. Gupta, you know, if I can take a broader view of this. So, over the last 4 years, from 2020 to 2024, India received as much as $650 million from US aid. The total allocation over the last 20 years has been over 2.86 billion. But I want to specifically, in the calendar year 2024, US aid disbursed something like 150 million. Admittedly, a lot of this went into projects in health, in economic development, education, social service, etc. But there was 6.72 million that went for promoting democracy, human rights and governance. And the Modi government has been saying, you know, that there are Western media outlets, there is propaganda, you know, trying to change opinion here in India, all through nefarious means. Why was this money then allowed to come to India, and to which entities was this money coming into? Why did it take Doge and Mr. Trump to shine the light on this?
Well, look at it this way. Even in Washington, D.C., people were unaware of how money was being pumped out for questionable purposes. So it required a disruption by way of DOGE to come across these details. Now, what the American embassy does sitting out in Delhi, it's very difficult to monitor, to control, and definitely to try and sort of prevent it from happening. Now, I'm just giving an example. Now, supposing you have individual A sitting in any embassy in Delhi, handing out money or distributing money or running some sort of a covert operation, it becomes very difficult to track it on a 24/7 basis. It is of course known and found out from time to time, and then suitable action is taken. Now, don't forget that the Modi government has placed all NGOs under great scrutiny. Many of them have lost their FCRA status. That means they cannot receive foreign contributions. And so it is a work in progress. And I think a great amount of blockage has been done by way of government intervention. Amnesty International, which was running a racket in India, has had to virtually shut shop. We have the example, various such other examples. And it just happens. It happens when the government comes across details, comes across facts of abuse, then the government acts. Now, supposing there is USAID money which is going into a collaborative project on education or whatever,
Okay.
so that is not really a covert operation, and the purpose of that is not questionable in the to the extent that India is not an aid receiver, but some programs they collaborate because they want to feel nice about it. So which is fine.
Okay.
But there are various organizations which have been found out. Think tanks like Center for Policy Research has been stripped of its FCRA status. It was, I understand, CPR was a recipient of USAID money. So it's a big country, and the way the money would have been spread, it would take a lot of effort to check on the money trail, to confirm payments, and to act on it. But even there are organizations which allegedly promote democracy and human rights. They have been acted against. One of them, when the government acted against one of them, the then US government had objected to it. but government remains firm and acts on it.
So can I ask you as a closing question, Mr. Gupta? So this has obviously become political. Mr. Jairam Ramesh, the chief spokesperson of the Congress party, has tweeted this out a few hours ago, and I want your reaction to this. He says US aid is very much in the news these days. It was set up on the 3rd of November 1961. Claims being made by the US president are typically nonsensical, to say the least. Even so, the government of India should bring out a white paper at the earliest detailing US aid support to both governmental and non-governmental institutions in India over the decades. Are you open to the idea of bringing out a white paper so that the people of India know who has been a beneficiary or who has been a recipient of this money?
Well, let me remind Mr. Jairam Ramesh, when Indira Gandhi was Prime Minister of India, almost every second day she would make a public statement how a particular foreign agency was trying to disrupt governance in India, how it was spying on the government of India, how it was posing problems for the government of India. And that agency I will not name over here, I need not name,
Sure.
and I'm sure Mr. Jairam Ramesh is aware of it and he knows which agency I'm referring to. Now, as far as US aid operating in this country since 1961 is concerned, nobody is denying the fact that the US aid has been around for a long time. Nobody is denying the fact that the US aid has been pumping money into regime change operations or electoral intervention. But these are details which are coming out now. These are details which are coming out of America, which is the origin point, which is the point of origin
All right.
for US aid. So what is Mr. Jairam Ramesh's gripe about? I couldn't quite understand. But what I do understand is that the Overseas Congress, of which Sam Pitroda is the head, they have had some brush with US aid. I also understand that some US aid was received by agencies or entities close to the Congress. So these are the questions which now will be looked at. The truth is bound to come out.
All right.
And there is absolutely no need for Mr. Jairam Ramesh to go into an overdrive on it. He knows as much as I know what is being talked about. And as for the government will definitely place details in the public domain once investigations and scrutiny is over. All the actions taken against think tanks which have been receiving money from US aid, those details are in the public domain.
All right.
So this is a government which believes in transparency, and it will be a transparent action whenever it happens.
As they say, sunlight is the best disinfectant. So hopefully sooner than later we'll have the information in the public domain as to who the recipients of this $21 million was from US aid to India for quote-unquote voter turnout. Thank you very much, Mr. Kanchan Gupta, for joining us. Meanwhile, let's shift focus to some other stories. Karnataka Chief Minister Siddaramaiah and his wife have been cleared of all charges in the Muda scam. Karnataka Lokayukta probe officers have submitted what they're calling a final report to the Karnataka High Court. That report basically says that the allegations against both Mr. Siddaramaiah and his wife, Parvati Amma, could not be proven because of a lack of evidence. The Lokayukta police have also clarified that further investigation will be conducted into the land allotment practices followed by Muda from 2016 to 2024. Mr. Siddaramaiah was Chief Minister in the interim till 2018. Then he lost power, and then the BJP was in power from 2019 till 2023. Now, prior to submitting that report in the special court, a notice was issued to the complainant, Snemai Krishna, saying that the allegations in the Muda scam case could not be substantiated because of a lack of evidence. They've asked him to provide more proof if he had any. The complainant, though, has strongly criticized the Lokayukta, saying that it is shielding political leaders and vowing to challenge the final report, the closure report of the Lokayukta, in a further court, in an appellate court.
ಸರ್, ಲೋಕಾಯುಕ್ತದ ಮೇಲೆ ನಾನು ಏನು ಅನುಮಾನ ಪಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೆ ಆ ಅನುಮಾನ ನಿಜ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಆದರೆ ಲೋಕಾಯುಕ್ತ ಅಧಿಕಾರಿಗಳು ತಮ್ಮ ಆತ್ಮಸಾಕ್ಷಿಯನ್ನು ಮಾರಿಕೊಂಡು ರಾಜಕಾರಣಿಗಳ ಪ್ರಭಾವಕ್ಕೊಳಗಾಗಿ ತಮ್ಮ ಕರ್ತವ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ವಿರುದ್ಧವಾಗಿ ನಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ನಾನು ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಸಾಕ್ಷ್ಯಗಳನ್ನು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದರೂ ಕೂಡ ಸಾಕ್ಷ್ಯಾಧಾರಗಳ ಕೊರತೆ ಅನ್ನೋ ಸುಳ್ಳು ಮಾಹಿತಿಯನ್ನು ನೀಡಿ ಏನು 4 ಜನ ಆರೋಪಿಗಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂದರೆ 1ನೇ ಆರೋಪಿ ಸಿದ್ದರಾಮಯ್ಯ, 2ನೇ ಆರೋಪಿ ಪಾರ್ವತಿ, 3ನೇ ಆರೋಪಿ ಮಲ್ಲಿಕಾರ್ಜುನ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ, 4ನೇ ಆರೋಪಿ ದೇವರಾಜು. ಇವ್ರ ವಿರುದ್ಧ ಯಾವುದೇ ಸಾಕ್ಷ್ಯಗಳು ಇಲ್ಲ, ಸಾಕ್ಷ್ಯಗಳ ಕೊರತೆ ಇದೆ ಅನ್ನೋಲ್ಲಿ ಅವ್ರ ವಿರುದ್ಧ ಬಿ ಅಂತಿಮ ವರದಿ ಸಲ್ಲಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಇದನ್ನು ನೀವು ನ್ಯಾಯಾಲಯ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಅಂತೇಳಿ ನನಗೆ ನೋಟಿಸನ್ನು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ.
So this is a major boost for the Karnataka Chief Minister, the clean chit that's been issued by the Karnataka Lokayukta in the Muda scam. It carries significant implications, politically speaking, as well. Let's now break down what this development means for the Chief Minister, the ongoing tussle for power there in the state. The clean chit basically provides a huge legal reprieve for Siddaramaiah, for his wife, and also for his brother-in-law, all of whom were allegedly accused in this case. This decision by the Lokayukta acts as a political victory as well. It's not just a legal relief, but it's a political victory because it bolsters Siddaramaiah's position within his party as well as the Congress-led government. It also dispels any serious allegations of corruption personally against the Chief Minister or his family. The Chief Minister can now focus on consolidating his leadership, strengthening his influence both within the state apparatus, the state machinery, as well as within the party, the Congress in Karnataka. The report is also expected to dampen internal party dissent, particularly with the rival faction, the likes of DK Shiv Kumar, who's had an ongoing power tussle with the Chief Minister. Siddaramaiah's authority and his legal standing will also be further bolstered because of this report. This development weakens any ongoing discussions around changing the Chief Minister or a rotational Chief Minister formula. Siddaramaiah's position remains much more cemented now after the clean chit given by the Lokayukta. The opposition's allegations of corruption against Siddaramaiah now lose their potency as the clean chit removes the legal grounds for their claims, leaving them with limited ammunition in their attack. Let's listen in to some political reactions.
Chief Minister is a boss to the officers who is working with Lokayukta. Lokayukta officers cannot investigate the boss. Chief Minister is a culprit in the case, putting a pressure on the officials. Now he is trying to take a clean chit. This is not correct. It is totally an injustice.
See, it was a very clear-cut case where the case was filed politically against the Chief Minister, and it was a case to target him personally.
All right, when the Prime Minister met with US President Donald Trump, he made a verbal offer that ultimately the United States would like to sell the F35, the 5th generation fighter jet, to India. It is the world's deadliest weapons platform that has been ever made. But the big question is India ready for a 5th generation fighter like the F35? Currently, India has no 5th generation fighter. The IAF fleet consists of the 4.5 generation Rafale. It's a mix of Russian flights like the Sukhois or the French like the Rafales and the Mirages. What will it take to prepare India for the F35? I break that down for you, and then later on in the program, I'll also chat up with former IAF chief Air Marshal S. Krishnaswamy on whether or not the F35 is the right fit for India. The prospect of India acquiring the F-35 Lightning II, which is a 5th generation stealth fighter jet, has sparked considerable debate. Donald Trump made this offer verbally while meeting with Prime Minister Modi in the White House last week. While the F-35 is touted as a game changer in air dominance, a closer examination reveals that India may not be ready for the world's deadliest platform. Several factors: infrastructure limitations, interoperability challenges, and then of course the price tag. All of this means that India needs to address critical gaps before it can effectively integrate the F-35 into its air force. One of the primary challenges is the integration of F-35 into India's existing air force structure, which is heavily reliant on Russian-made jets. The IAF possesses infrastructure which is tailored for the Sukhois and the MiG fighters, and incorporating the F-35 would mean significant changes in logistics, maintenance, and support systems. The F-35 systems pose major integration hurdles as the IAF currently uses a mix of Russian fighters as well as French fighters, and then of course there are locally made aircraft, all of which are incompatible with American systems. The F-35 demands specialized training and expertise. The F-35 pilots must learn NATO standard operations and complex data systems from scratch. The training requirements and the costs for the F-35 are steep, and India would need to invest heavily in training its pilots, its ground crews to handle the aircraft's advanced systems. Maintenance and servicing is another significant hurdle. The F-35 requires sophisticated maintenance ecosystem and a new supply chain that is aligned with American standards. The cost of maintenance, pilot training, and spare parts for the F-35 can be exorbitantly high. A significant portion, in fact, of the US Air Force's F-35 fleet is often unfit to fly at any given point of time. Moreover, the extensive logistics footprint that is required for the F-35's deployment does also pose a challenge. The amount of equipment and supplies needed to maintain the F-35 ecosystem can strain resources and also extend deployment times, and that could potentially hinder operational effectiveness. The F-35 is among the most expensive fighter jets ever built. Each jet costs anywhere between $80 million and over $100 million. The overall cost of owning an F-35 extends well beyond the initial purchase price. It encompasses maintenance, training, and spare parts. And given India's need to modernize its defense forces while at the same time also take care of its vast population and having a limited defense budget, investing in the F-35 fleet may not be financially viable. Currently, the Indian Air Force operates a mix of Russian, French, and Indian-made fighter jets. It includes the Sukhoi 30 MKIs from Russia, the Rafale and the Mirage 2000 from France, and of course the indigenous Tejas light combat aircraft, which is in various stages of development. India is also trying to develop its own fifth-generation fighter jet, the AMCA. Now, while these jets are all highly capable, they lack the stealth technology and the advanced sensor systems which set the F-35 apart. However, this possible deal which Trump has offered brings up some important questions. One major concern is how India would retrofit the F-35 into its air force, which mainly operates with Russian and French jets. The IAF has infrastructure designed for the Sukhois and the MiGs, so adding the F-35 would require major changes in logistics, maintenance, and support. India's ongoing purchase of Rafale jets from France and its own efforts to develop its own fighter jets like the AMCA, the Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft, make the decision to onboard the F-35s even more complex. The big question is whether New Delhi is ready to adapt to a completely new aircraft system. India's strategic priorities and threat perceptions also influence whether the F-35 is suitable for India. Some experts believe that instead of buying the F-35 or settling even for the fifth-generation Russian fighter, the Sukhoi 57, acquiring more combat-ready and combat-proven French Rafales would be a wiser decision. The 36 Rafales for the Army have already been delivered, and now the Navy is expected to announce the purchase of the Rafale Ms, which is the maritime version of the fighter jet. A critical challenge is the presence of Russian S-400 air defense systems in India. The US is strongly opposed to any country that operates both the F-35 and the S-400 because the radars of the S-400 can potentially track and compromise the stealth nature of the F-35. In fact, earlier there was an example where the US had stopped an F-35 sale to Turkey after it purchased the S-400 defense systems from Russia. India will also have to likely contend with that same problem. This deal also has geopolitical effects. India has always maintained its strategic autonomy, carefully balancing its relationship between Washington and Moscow. For decades, Russia has been India's main weapon supplier. Even today, more than 50% of India's armaments come from Russia. Buying the F-35s could sour ties between Delhi and Moscow. Russia is already providing the S-400 air defense system, which has raised concerns in Washington. In fact, the previous US administration and also in Trump 1.0, there was the warning of sanctions against India using CATSA, which is countering America's adversaries through Sanctions Act. If India decides to buy the F-35, it might have to rethink its dependence on Russian air defense. It's also because the US could impose sanctions or India could make difficulties in making American and Russian defense systems working together smoothly. That's not the only geopolitical or strategic angle. There's also China and Pakistan, both of whom will be closely monitoring if India were to buy the F-35. China has been rapidly upgrading its air force with its J-20 stealth fighters. It even recently unveiled its sixth-generation fighter, the J-36. If India acquires the F-35, Beijing may see this as a direct challenge to its air superiority. Pakistan, which is India's longtime rival, also depends on a mix of Chinese and American jets, including the F-16s. If India gets the F-35, then Pakistan might respond by strengthening its partnership with China. It could even acquire more advanced Chinese J-31 stealth fighters to maintain balance. The United States offering to sell the F-35 stealth jets to India might not be about just boosting the Indian Air Force. It could also be a strategic move to reduce India's long-standing defense relationship with Russia. With the intended deployment target not explicitly mentioned, the context of India's strategic concerns will be a focus on potentially the worst-case scenario, which is a two-front war involving both China in the north and Pakistan to the west. The F-35 stealth capabilities would be particularly valuable in penetrating hostile air defenses vis-à-vis China. While the F-35 offers advanced capabilities, India faces significant hurdles in integrating the F-35 into its existing fleet. Addressing these challenges requires substantial investments, whether it is in infrastructure, training, or in logistics. India must carefully consider the strategic and financial implications of acquiring the F-35. The world is paying close attention to the future course of this deal, from Washington to Moscow to Beijing. Delhi will have to tread very carefully. All right, so is India ready for the F-35? Even though the offer was made verbally, there's still a long way to go before this actualizes, if at all it does. But is India prepared for such a thing? Let's speak to former Chief of Air Staff, retired Air Chief Marshal S. Krishnaswamy. Thank you very much, sir, for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. The cost considerations aside, we'll come to cost in just 1 second. Is India ready for the F-35? I mean, what would India need to do in terms of preparatory groundwork, training for pilots, infrastructure, interoperability, maintenance, a whole host of groundwork that needs to be laid before it can procure the F-35s?
First, I see there would be a major problem in integrating the aircraft in our other combat environment. Because it has got a very, what should I say, sensor fusion combined a total system. It's a system by itself, the F-35. Now, we don't have any of their subsystems on board in India. So, it's got its displays, very advanced radar, the avionics, and they all ought to be compatible to each other. So we have, if we take all that entire package, we can't work it in India. So we don't have similar systems in India. For example, if you recall the Su-30 MKI experience, we had to put in our mission computers and our avionics.
Okay.
And that had taken quite some time. And we are very unfamiliar with the American systems, basically, and especially the one in the F-35.
I do want to ask you, I mean, the current fleet that the Indian Air Force has, a bulk of it are either Russian, Sukhois, then you have the French, the Rafales now more recently, the Mirage and so on. We've never really had American, fighter jets. But there's also the need for a fifth generation, some would argue, because you already have seen the Chinese unveiling their sixth generation fighter, and India, the doomsday scenario is always this two-front war. How would you square the need for a fifth generation with the fact that we don't have systems tailored for American fighter jets? Bulk of our fleet is either Russian or French.
Zakka, the pith of fifth generation is an integrated operational systems. That is, all the sensor like radar, electro-optical sensors, that's what you call EOTS, and electronic warfare system, and other sensors like radar. They all are integrated on talking to each other, and they are on a what she call data transfer mode. So we don't have an integrated system. It should be go on a data link. Firstly, we don't have the American data link. We have our own link, which is different. So that must be compatible to our data link. And so it has got to integrate with our systems. Personally, I worry a bit on this aspect. How can they make it work in our system?
The other thing, Chief, is, obviously Trump is coming into this from a very transactional business buyer-seller point of view. And obviously India has concerns beyond just the defense relationship with America, interests and alignments with America. Do you reckon that there can be some happy meeting ground where India can say, okay, let's explore the possibility of the F-35. Meanwhile, the joint statement talks about, the Strikers and the Javelins and other defense equipment, because Trump has made it clear that he expects India to buy more American equipment. So where do you marry the two?
I find it, for example, if you take the F-15I, what Israelis have. Now, Israeli took 4 or 5 airplanes in 2020, and they developed the integration in their own. They put Israeli avionics, Israeli sensors, and more importantly, Israeli electronic warfare systems on the F-35. So the Americans permitted that. They flew the aircraft to Israel, and there the Israeli did work on that. That's what exactly we did with the Su-30 MKI.
Okay.
On the Su-30 MKI, we brought the aircraft, and plus we gave our mission computer to the Russians, and there it was integrated. Either that is done for example, in America or in India. So we got to do a fair amount of work to integrate and make it workable in our environment.
And finally, Chief, what about the costs? I mean, there are other fifth-generation fighter aircraft out there which are probably half the cost.
Yes, I'm aware of it, and in my understanding, of course, it depends on coming from Trump, their legacy or whatever that is. But I believe that the aircraft will be very, very expensive. Broadly, it is quoted as about $85 billion, $85 million.
Correct.
And but by the time they integrate our system, our training system, and so on, it could go up to 100 million easily.
Yeah.
So that would be a very expensive aircraft, and currently we would be under great pressure to find the sources for our AMCA project. We have LCA Mark II going, we have AMCA going.
Yeah.
And in no way that we can go those programs, we can't slow them down. As it is, they're very, very slow.
All right, Air Chief Marshal S. Krishnaswamy, thank you very much for joining us here on CNN News 18 with your thoughts and perspective. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio traveled to Jerusalem over the weekend to meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Their discussions focused on how President Trump came up with this new proposal for Gaza. They also discussed the ongoing conflict and the ceasefire that is currently on between Israel and Hamas, and of course, the broader regional security situation. The meeting marked Rubio's first official visit to the region as Secretary of State. It happens at a critical time when tensions are still high and the future of the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas is still uncertain. One of the most pressing topics during the visit was President Trump's highly controversial proposal to take over control of Gaza and to relocate its Palestinian residents. This idea, which envisions transforming Gaza into an American-administered territory dubbed as the Riviera of the Middle East, has sparked widespread international debate. While Trump's supporters see this as a bold and unprecedented approach to resolving this long-standing conflict, critics argue that it's both impractical and a violation of international law. Rubio's meetings in Saudi Arabia and in the United Arab Emirates this week are expected to include further discussions about Trump's Gaza proposal, while it is expected to get a severe pushback from Arab countries. In a speech following the meeting in Jerusalem with Netanyahu, Secretary Rubio emphasized that new strategies are needed to address the Gaza crisis. He said Trump's proposal did surprise many people, but he argued that repeating the same old approach again and again would only lead to more cycles of violence. Rubio also discussed broader security threats in the region. He was particularly concerned about the new Syrian government, which has traces of ISIS or elements from ISIS part of it, and also the need to neutralize the influence of Hezbollah inside Lebanon. But he also placed particular blame on Iran, calling Iran the primary source of all instability in the Middle East. He suggested that nearly every act of terrorism behind it, whether it's the violence or the destabilization that's been plaguing the Middle East, Marco Rubio has squarely put the blame on Iran's doorstep.
The common theme in all of these challenges is Iran. It is the single greatest source of instability in the region. Behind every terrorist group, behind every act of violence, behind every destabilizing activity, behind everything that threatens peace and stability for the millions of people who call this region home, is Iran. And by Iran, I mean the Ayatollahs. By Iran, I mean its regime. A regime who, by the way, its people don't support. The people of Iran are victims of that regime.
Netanyahu, for his part, expressed gratitude about the continued American support, particularly regarding Israel's policies in Gaza. He also said that both Israel and the United States are closely coordinating on their long-term vision for Gaza. However, the Israeli government is yet to present a concrete strategy for the future of Gaza, either to the Israeli citizens or even, for that matter, to the international community. While Netanyahu did not go into the specific details, he did say that discussions with President Trump had been going well, and he was aware of this proposal to make Gaza into a Riviera of sorts that was discussed between him and President Trump before it was publicly announced.
I want to assure everyone who's now listening to us, President Trump and I are working in full cooperation and coordination between us. We have a common strategy, and we can't always share the details of this strategy with the public, including when the gates of hell will be opened, as they surely will if all our hostages are not released until the last one of them.
The world first learned of Trump's Gaza plan during a February 4th press conference with Netanyahu at the White House.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site, and get rid of the destroyed buildings.
In the days that followed, Netanyahu
Delhi, forget AAP. I mean, I'm not saying whether it's good or bad. I'm not like taking any sides, but I'm saying if AAP has been a very unique kind of experiment in Delhi. It won.
ईश्वर की शपथ लेती हूँ कि मैं विधि द्वारा स्थापित भारत के संविधान के प्रति सच्ची श्रद्धा और निष्ठा रखूंगी। मैं भारत की प्रभुता और अखंडता अक्षुण्ण रखूंगी। मैं मुख्यमंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों का श्रद्धापूर्वक और शुद्ध अंतःकरण से निर्वहन करूंगी तथा मैं भय या पक्षपात, अनुराग या द्वेष के बिना सभी प्रकार के लोगों के प्रति संविधान और विधि के अनुसार न्याय करूंगी। मैं रेखा गुप्ता ईश्वर की शपथ लेती हूं कि जो विषय मुख्यमंत्री के रूप में मेरे विचार के लिए लाया जाएगा अथवा मुझे ज्ञात होगा, उसे किसी व्यक्ति या व्यक्तियों को तब के सिवाय जबकि ऐसे मुख्यमंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों के समय निर्वहन के लिए ऐसा करना अपेक्षित हो, मैं प्रत्यक्ष या अप्रत्यक्ष रूप से संसूचित या प्रकट नहीं करूंगी।
Lieutenant Governor Vinay Saxena, in fact, over there administering the oath to Rekha Gupta, the new Chief Minister of Delhi, as Rekha Gupta now, in fact, greets the Prime Minister, who's very much present on the dais and, in fact, extremely honoured as she's just been sworn in as the new Chief Minister of Delhi. We all know that this is the second time you have a woman Chief Minister from the BJP for the national capital, and the first, of course, going under the current scheme of things as far as the BJP government is concerned. Let's listen in.
मैं परवेज साहिब सिंह ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि मैं विधि द्वारा स्थापित भारत के संविधान के प्रति सच्ची श्रद्धा और निष्ठा रखूंगा। मैं भारत की प्रभुता और अखंडता को अक्षुण्ण रखूंगा। मैं मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों का श्रद्धापूर्वक और शुद्ध अंतःकरण से निर्वहन करूंगा। मैं भय या पक्षपात, अनुराग या द्वेष के बिना सभी प्रकार के लोगों के प्रति संविधान और विधि के अनुसार न्याय करूंगा। मैं परवेज साहिब सिंह ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि जो विषय मंत्री के रूप में मेरे विचार के लिए लाया जाएगा अथवा मुझे ज्ञात होगा, उसे किसी व्यक्ति या व्यक्तियों को तब के सिवाय जबकि ऐसे मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों के सम्यक निर्वहन के लिए ऐसा करना अपेक्षित हो, मैं प्रत्यक्ष अथवा अप्रत्यक्ष रूप से संसूचित या प्रकट नहीं करूंगा। जय हिंद।
And Parvesh Verma over there now sworn in as the new Deputy Chief Minister of the National Capital, as LG Vinay Saxena also administered that oath to Parvesh Verma, who's now been sworn in as the new Delhi CM, Delhi Deputy Chief Minister, I beg your pardon. Cabinet Minister, in fact. Let's quickly, in fact, also take you through all the latest that's coming in.
मैं आशीष सुशीला मदन गोपाल सूद ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि मैं विधि द्वारा स्थापित भारत के संविधान के प्रति सच्ची श्रद्धा और निष्ठा रखूंगा। मैं भारत की प्रभुता और अखंडता को अक्षुण्ण रखूंगा। मैं मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों का श्रद्धापूर्वक और शुद्ध अंतःकरण से निर्वहन करूंगा तथा मैं भय या पक्षपात, अनुराग या द्वेष के बिना सभी प्रकार के लोगों के प्रति संविधान और विधि के अनुसार न्याय करूंगा। मैं आशीष सुशीला मदन गोपाल सूद ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि जो विषय मंत्री के रूप में मेरे विचार के लिए लाया जाएगा अथवा मुझे ज्ञात होगा, उसे किसी व्यक्ति या व्यक्तियों को तब के सिवाय जबकि ऐसे मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों के सम्यक निर्वहन के लिए ऐसा करना अपेक्षित हो, मैं प्रत्यक्ष अथवा अप्रत्यक्ष रूप से संसूचित या प्रकट नहीं करूंगा। भारत माता की जय।
All right, so what you can see, in fact, is the swearing in of the cabinet ministers, the 6 cabinet ministers who've been chosen. Ashish Sood along, in fact, Parvesh Verma over there, and Ashish Sood is also one of them. 6 cabinet ministers in all. Kapil Mishra is going to be one of them. Ashish Sood, who's just been sworn in. Remember, he's MLA from Janakpuri. Next is Majinder Singh Sirsa.